Arthur Morgan is a notorious fictional gunslinger from the late 19th century to the early 20th century, but all he had to use as weapons were revolvers, repeaters, and basic shotguns. So what would happen if we placed Arthur Morgan in the wild west of the Nevada? Would he be able to survive or even thrive? So the question is, can you beat Fallout New Vegas as Arthur Morgan? Now let's just start off with the rules, and the rules today are as follows. First of all, I must only use weapons available directly in the Red Dead Redemption 2 game, or variations which are extremely similar. For example, the cowboy repeater doesn't actually exist in Red Dead Redemption 2, but it is a similar gun to those present in the game, like the normal repeaters. As for armor today, I don't have any direct restrictions as long as I look like a cowboy, so mainly cowboy hats and western clothing will be acceptable. To win today, we have a few extra requirements. We of course have to beat the game, but also we have to earn 10,000 caps for Dutch so we can get to Tahiti, and also grab our fellow gunslinger Raoul off the top of Black Mountain. We are playing on normal difficulty today and I have no mods installed, so without any more delays, let's begin. I started off by waking up with a massive headache while also being massively confused since I couldn't find Dutch or the rest of the gang. I then recreated my face to look about 0% of what Arthur looks like, and then I went for my special stats. I wanted my character to be the same or similar to what I think Arthur Morgan would be like. First, a luck of 1 because the whole tuberculosis, and a charisma of 1 because Arthur is not a talker at all but more of an enforcer. I then placed the rest of my points pretty evenly between strength, endurance, perception, agility, and intelligence, since Arthur is pretty good at those things. As for tag skills, I mainly took guns and medicine. I can't remember the third one now, but guns and medicine were very important because I would be using those two the most. I also took trigger discipline since I won't be using any real automatic weapons today, and I enabled Wild Wasteland for the fun of it. Leaving Doc Mitchell's house, I went straight to Sunny Smiles because she has the first real weapon which we can use, the varmint rifle. This weapon is pretty average, but enough to get us through the beginning of the game. I then went up to my grave and grabbed Benny's durries since I need to be able to pack my guns in the casino when I do reach him. After that, I got to test out my varmint rifle on Joe Cobb's head, and despite it being mainly to kill vermin, it worked quite well on Joe. This has to be a sign that he is nothing but a pest. Cobb also had a revolver, which I nabbed to use later. I then did some chatting with Ringo and Doc Mitchell, after which some powder gangers arrived. Now, I was actually completely useless in this fight because I couldn't aim at all, but Sonny and Ringo were able to clean up the powder gangers with no problems. I also looted one of them for a cowboy hat, which looked mighty fine, and then I moved towards Primm. On the way to Primm, I killed 2 more powder gangers who also had some dynamite, which is another weapon we can use since it is also present in Red Dead Redemption 2. At Primm, I killed off the convicts outside the casino and then purchased a cowboy repeater, which is probably the strongest weapon we would get today. Inside the Bison Steve, I killed off even more convicts with the varmint rifle, and also some with the cowboy repeater, which went pretty well, since some sneak attacks or even just a few spamming of left click could usually kill them. The damage I dealt was more than enough, and even though I had a lack of protection, I could usually kill them faster than they could kill me. I also killed another convict with a sneak critical attack, and then showed their leader what a stick of dynamite looks like, to which he fell dead in amazement. I then freed Deputy Bagel and also reinstalled law to the town of Primm by making everyone's favourite Primm Slim the sheriff of the town. Now moving on from Primm, en route to Novac, I wanted to kill the Legion at Nipton, since they are obviously not the honourable cowpoke type. This went how you would have imagined, with my death quite a few times. To add to this, I had about fuck all worth of ammo and only had sticks of dynamite, which I could actually use, so obviously I just started throwing them everywhere. My feet, their heads sometimes. Heck, I even threw sticks of dynamite into the wall, which didn't really do much. I also used what was left of my repeater ammo to finish off some of the Legionnaires, especially when they were much lower on HP and I had the opportunity to kill them. Eventually, these pathetic Legion members were then left as nothing but a few exploded corpses on the burning ground of Nipton. Continuing toward Novac, I killed a few more criminals who may as well be O'Driscolls, that were camping out the highway trying to ambush people, but as you may know, Arthur Morgan is impossible to ambush, and they all ended up facing a very painful death. Arriving at Novac, I agreed to help with cleaning out the ghouls who were infesting the Repconn site, so the town could scavenge for junk again. I arrived at the site with 18 bullets and a dream to reach Jason Bright. To be as efficient as possible, I used VATS for headshots since I could kill one ghoul with one bullet, which made my dream much more realistic to achieve. Befittingly, the last ghoul was killed by my last bullet, and I spoke to Jason. Jason then tasked me with killing a bunch of demons who were actually Nightkin inside of the Repconn basement. Now, I've only done this mission once before, so I thought for sure these Nightkin are not ridiculously tanky and take 6 sticks of dynamite to kill. Spoiler alert, they did. Before I could kill, or at least try to kill the ridiculously tanky Nightkin, I made a tactical retreat back to Novac so I could purchase more supplies, which mainly consisted of bullets for my repeater. Now, back inside the basement again, I was being molested by Nightkin, and like an idiot, I took multiple wrong turns, so I ended up in the middle of nowhere in the prison section rather than with Davison, their leader. After running out of ammunition another time, I made another retreat. This time I was after something different, not ammunition, but a close quarters weapon which could annihilate all the kin in the basement. This weapon was a repeating shotgun, and it just so happened there was one near Boulder City, so that was our next destination. On my way to Boulder City, I encountered a Legion assassin party, and I am level 4, have broken armor, and no bullets, so as you can imagine, they killed me very fast. Trying again, I snuck around very well, until I didn't, and then I tried to lure them into Novac so the sniper could kill the Legionnaires. The assassins were too smart and would not approach Novac and instead stood very far away, so the sniper just wouldn't shoot them. Eventually I became hidden again, and this time instead of trying to sneak around them, I just went much further into the desert so I could reach Helios 1, and the NCR would pretty much lure them away. This plan worked and we arrived at Boulder City not long after. While I was at Boulder City, I thought may as well knock off the Great Khans early, so I went into the city and I spoke to Jessup and he told me to bribe the NCR. Since I wanted a higher reputation with the Khans for later, that is exactly what I did. And so the Khans were set free from the deal I made because money means everything. Inside of the local bar, I also acquired the lever action shotgun, aka the repeating shotgun from Red Dead 2. When I said the cowboy repeater would be the best gun we get, I was lying. It is definitely the repeating shotgun. Back inside the basement for the 3rd time now, I killed the remaining Nightkin, which was literally one Nightkin, with the powerful blast of my shotgun. I then also delivered some killing damage to the leader Davison, who, despite having a great weapon, could not stop my shotgun and amazing shooting skills. Now, with the Night King cleared, Jason entered the basement with his posse of ghouls, who were getting ready to fly to space. I was then tasked with helping fix the rockets so they could go to the moon. To do this, I needed to get 2 items, a thrust controller and an isotope 239 igniting agent. To find these, I went to Old Lady Gibson, who I purchased the thrust controller from, and she also pointed me in the direction of the isotope which I needed to acquire. I then went, grabbed the isotope, and returned to Chris, who told me it was time to prepare the launch and send the ghouls off to space, including himself, which of course he doesn't know we won't be doing. I then went up to the control tower and sent Jason plus his followers to the great beyond. With the ghouls now gone, I completed the quest for the people of Novac, so they were able to return to their normal lives, and I also became idolized with them. I then gunned straight for the strip and I entered through Freeside. In Freeside, I got wind of a heist at the Silver Rush Casino where the Van Graffs have taken hold. This heist was very simple and it would help Dutch. I would steal everything on display and then I would just run for the hills. This went very well until it didn't. Now with a little bit more thinking, I had a new idea. I pick up the equipment worth thousands of dollars and I'm just gonna walk it behind closed doors. Of course, it's not in my inventory, so I'm not stealing. Then, like a magic trick, it would all disappear straight into my pocket and no one would notice. Now because
I had a goddamn plan! again!
It went very smooth on the next attempt, and I made out with everything inside the Silver Rush that was worth over 1,000 caps. I then fenced some of the stolen goods to the gun runners so I could pass the credit check to enter the strip, and then I went to confront Benny. Inside of the Tops casino, I spoke to Swank, who I showed evidence that Benny tried to rob and kill me. From the 2 pieces of evidence I had collected, Swank made sure the Tops guards, or at least the normal chairman, would ignore me, and also allowed me to pack weapons inside the casino. Speaking with Benny, I challenged him and his gang to a shootout, which ended in my death. Now, instead I chose a different choice, and this was called ignoring Benny and blasting his chairman's head off. Now, this actually worked quite well, and for some reason Benny just stood there as if nothing happened. Once I spoke to him, he said this:
"You want a reason? How about 4? They're called bodyguards, and every one of them is packing. Me too, so baby makes 5.
And then I blasted him into a little blood splatter on the floor and grabbed the platinum chip off of his corpse. Now, with Benny gone, it was time to create the world Dutch wanted, where we are able to govern ourselves free of the filthy capitalistic modern society. To do this, I spoke to Yes Man, and he had tasked me with removing Mr. House. I went over to the Lucky 38, and that is exactly what I did. Yes Man then uploaded himself onto the Lucky 38 network, and I went into the basement to watch a presentation on the new Securitrons and upgrades to their software. With this in mind, I knew if I wanted to maintain my perfect society, I would need some way to keep the rich and corrupt of the other societies away. So off to the Legion fort I went. On the way there, I got a whole squad of NCR to chase me around for like 10 minutes. I wonder, could we do a run where I need to escape an NCR squad similar to Nobit's other runs, such as with Private Kowalski? That is just an idea right now, nothing set in stone, but it could be interesting. Inside of Cottonwood Cove, I then started blasting the ghouls, and with the new shotgun, it wasn't too big of a problem. Even the glowing ghoul only withstood around 2 shots before it died. Not long after, I reached Cottonwood Cove and I took the boat up to the Legion fort. At the fort, I engaged in another heist, and this was some theft of Legion equipment, because I live by the motto, steal from the rich and give to myself. It is easily the best way to live. I then had a nice chat with Kaiser, who tasked me with destroying what was in the bunker below their fort. This is where my master plan began. I would shoot my way through the security located within, and with my immense 1898 firepower, they couldn't withstand me. Most of the extremely futuristic Protectrons and laser turrets took 1 or 2 blasts from my repeater or shotgun to just spontaneously explode. Continuing on my master plan, I infiltrated the security room using dynamite to clear the cluster of firepower that was within. Once that was dealt with, I placed the platinum chip into the console, and I reactivated a legion of robots to destroy, well, the Legion very soon. I then returned to Lord Kaiser, who was easily a damn fool, and he thought I had destroyed whatever was within the bunker. Of course, that is not the case. Kaiser then sent me to ally the boomers with the Legion, to which I pretty much said yeah but nah, because I don't want a slave manic fool running the raceland. Back at the strip, I had received another tip that there was a whole lot of money.
We still need money!
At the White Glove Society casino, so I did what any normal cowboy does, and that was I blasted the whole entire staff within who tried to kill me with walking sticks. I was killed once, but otherwise the fools were left as a bunch of corpses. I then raided the strong room and looted the safes to find a crazy, ridiculous 8 cats. I was played and trapped by the Pinkertons. Good thing it didn't work out well for them and just ended up with a bunch of dead bodies. Now, the next heist I attempted was much more lucrative, and this was the Omerta gang, who are notorious for having extremely powerful but also expensive weaponry. Now, they were not going to just hand over their guns worth thousands of caps, so I made a trade offer they just couldn't hold off on. I would blast their heads in with a shotgun and they would just hand me their weapons. There were some back and forth negotiations that were so tense I had a few heart attacks, but otherwise the negotiations went pretty well. Most of the Omertas went down in 2 or so well-placed shots, or 4 if I couldn't aim very well. And not to say the least, their weapons were very powerful and dangerous, but with some good maneuvering, I was able to peek corners and end the gangsters before they could return the favor. In the end, we made out with many expensive firearms and also 2 new weapons, a sawed-off shotgun plus a new 44 Magnum revolver which I could use. On top of this, any of the other guns I grabbed were easily worth 500 to 2,000 caps on value, so overall this was a successful mission. It is probably gonna set us up for the goal of 10,000 caps. Now after all the robbing and killing, it was time to actually help some people, so I went off to the boomers. I started off by maybe robbing and killing again, but scammers are fair game and I would say it's just cleaning up society, so George became my next target. I then ran through the artillery being hauled at me by hiding within the ruined houses. I soon reached the gate and antagonized the boomers there. Now inside the Nellis Air Force Base, I spoke to Pearl, who said they needed help around Nellis. To begin to increase my rep with the boomers, I started off by chatting with the rascal in the museum and watching his little show, and then pretending I gave a flying fuck about his heritage, and I instantly went from a no one to a loved member. I also went to the medical bay and cured some of the dying boomers, whom I could, to increase my reputation even more. The final mission I did was helping Loyal with his broken solar panels. To do this, I went back over to Helios 1 and I used my Megamind to pretend like I know about some issue at Helios. I then could enter without any resistance and salvage all the solar panels with zero issues. No one even bat an eye at it. With the new parts, I was able to repair the solar panels at Nellis and I became idolized by the boomers. The final mission I had to complete was raising the bomber out of Lake Mead, and well, that went perfectly fine. I just ran over there, attached the ballast, and then raised it out with literally no problems. I then returned to Pearl and asked her for her support in the battle at Hoover Dam. Now with 3 out of the 5 factions destroyed or became allied with, next up was the Brotherhood of Steel. To get access to their bunker, I hit up Veronica at the 188 trading post, who let me walk right in. After walking right in, I walked right out, making that 4 out of 5 factions completed. While I was in the area, I also wanted to scale Black Mountain. I was actually able to hurt the mutants with my shotgun, but soon I ran low on ammunition. This meant the only logical option for me was to take the Black Mountain shortcut, past all the mutants, and then run past even more mutants. Soon I reached Tabitha's room and I pulled out my magnum and used it to exterminate her. Finally, I freed my fellow gunslinger Raoul, who will be following me for the rest of the game because we can pretend that he is a ghoulish Javier from the gang. I then just ran off the edge of Black Mountain because I was not going to fight a mutant with a flamethrower and one with a missile launcher. Now after the Black Mountain mission was completed, I needed to also maintain my good graces with the NCR before continuing on my main story, so I went to Ambassador Crocker, who wanted me to do a good old assassination job on Pacer because he was annoying the NCR. To do this, I went over to the Followers of the Apocalypse and I stole Pacer's medical file. Through these files, I was able to learn that he is a drug abuser and he would die if he took any more psycho. So of course, just like the CIA does in America, I slipped and accidentally removed a politically vital target. After that very beneficial mishap, I continued to remove political rivals when I wiped out the White Gloves again because they just didn't stay dead. This time though, I have a feeling they won't be back. The last faction I needed to have a dealing with was the Great Khans, who I initially was going to get on my side. However, due to time constraints on this video, I never got the opportunity, so I walked in, looked at the Khans leaders, and then walked right back over to Yes Man. Here I was instructed it would be good to protect President Kimball from the Legion and ensure his safety, so off to Hoover Dam I went. At the dam I spoke to Ranger Grant and I told him I was ready for the President's visit. Funny enough, I managed to screw up this very simple mission quite a few times, and it also usually led to my death. The first mistake I made was I killed the Legion sniper too early. No idea how this happened, but for some reason it made every single NCR member start shooting me, which I didn't like. On my next attempt, I shot the NCR engineer in the back of the head, once again too early, which led to the same outcome as before. Trying again, this time I walked up on stage with President Kimball because I wanted to, and then I was also blasted by every NCR member, which once again led to my death. Now, with the final and winning attempt, I killed the Legion sniper and stole the engineer's detonator, and this time I let the president finish his speech before I got some of my boys to kill off the engineer. After it was all said and done, the president of the NCR flew away nice and safe in his vertibird thanks to Arthur Morgan. With the president now safe and the NCR in my good graces, my next step was to activate the generator at the El Dorado substation. I did that and then I ran away, only being killed one time. For some reason, when I reloaded, the NCR didn't spawn, so I didn't have to kill them, which saved my reputation, so no problems there. Now before we begin the final assault on Hoover Dam, I had a few loose ends which needed tying up. The main one was getting 10,000 caps. I had all the equipment and items I would need to sell to reach 10,000 caps for Dutch, however I had no way to liquidate my stock until I remembered the gun runners just become absurdly rich as the game progresses, so I went straight to them. The robot there had a total of 8,000 caps, which was more than enough money for good old Dutch. So I sold off every weapon and item I robbed, and it left me with about 14,000 caps, so I had a few thousand spare to purchase some supplies. First of all, I bought some bullets off the gun runners and also Mick and Rouse. While restocking, I also performed the final robbery, which was against Dixon, and
This is America.
so one missing or headless homeless person won't really attract much attention. Not to mention, he was also a drug dealer. I mean, I am practically cleaning up the streets here. The American public should be thanking me. I also paid a visit to the 188 trading post where I found out that Samuel is a raging alcoholic who just drinks full fucking bottles of whiskey as if it's going out of fashion. I then went to a couple of other stores, mainly to purchase 20 gauge shotgun shells for the lever action, since it was the best weapon I own and the one I will be using the most. Now with Arthur having enough money to escape off to Tahiti, it was time to do my final ever fight at Hoover Dam. As you can imagine, the first few sections went very well, especially due to the fact that I sided with the NCR. This meant they would not shoot me, so I basically received a free ride up until the control room. At the control room, I started blasting through all the NCR soldiers. Raoul was actually quite a good gunslinger here, and soon most of the NCR soldiers fell, including the power armored ones. The shotgun could also hold its own in these fights, and I didn't really have too much resistance since once I knocked them down I was pretty much set. Inside the control room I decided to route the power since it would be the most logical, and also because fighting the Legate is way more interesting than fighting General Oliver. I then flipped the switch to route the power and made my way to the Legion encampment. The Centurions on my way there were a breeze because I had a bunch of Securitrons by my side who just vaporized them at a moment's notice. This meant they couldn't even scratch me. Now inside the Legion fort is where the real fight begins. The first Praetorian Guard wasn't a problem and he went down pretty fast. Even the two further in were not too difficult, but there was one veteran Legionnaire who was a real problem. He just kept killing me over and over again. I probably died at least 5 times here, but eventually I was able to close the gap between myself and the Legion soldier, who then ate a few shotgun blasts. Now this is where the final fight begins with the Legate, and it was the most challenging fight in the run overall. I tried probably 5 times before I started to just vat abuse and pump myself full of drugs. I still died many times even after starting to pump myself to the point of lobotomy, and I kept having vats break randomly where Arthur would just stand there and get hit until he just died. I did eventually get a lucky break after dying at least 15 to 20 times, where the Legate fell to the ground and I was able to deal some massive initial damage and also remove both of his Praetorian guards very fast. Once the Legate then returned to try again, I blasted his head off extremely quick. Not sure why or how that happened, my only guess is I got a critical or something to deal enough damage to just kill the Legate as fast as I did. As for the rest of the Legion, well, they were very easy to eliminate. I then spoke to General Oliver and used my Securitrons to basically vaporize his whole entire squad, which meant I officially beat Fallout New Vegas as Arthur Morgan. This was a run I had been wanting to make for a while, just because I have been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 a lot more now, and it's always been one of my favorite, if not my favorite game of all time, and as I'm sure many people share the same opinion. The weapons also did pretty decent in Fallout New Vegas, and the lever action shotgun was like easily our carry weapon in this run. The biggest challenge today would easily be the piss poor armor we had, which meant I had to use a lot of medical supplies, or in some situations I would just outright die to relatively weak enemies who wouldn't have normally been a problem. Overall though, this was a fun run, and I'm sorry it came out about a week later than usual. I was on vacation, then I went back to school, and all this stuff happened which screwed me over. We will be back on weekly uploads pretty much after this. Now, I just want to say I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.
We still need money!